All right, so in that last one, we set it up where in our checkout, we added the address and it saves into the database and all that's great. But if we want to actually use Ajax, we're going to have to change the way our view actually handles it. In fact, we're going to change it into a completely different view. Right? So right now we have it on our checkout where the checkout actually handles how the form works. We don't have to do this, and this is something we've seen with using Ajax already, so let's actually just start to actually build this process. Now, since we are adding an address, and that address model is inside of the accounts model, and there might be other places where we want to actually add in addresses, let's make one view to handle that part of things, whether it's just regular post data without Ajax, or if it's with Ajax. So if it's with Ajax, then we'll figure something out. But for now, let's go ahead and actually just cut this stuff out for the most part. I'm just going to cut if form is valid. And then I'm going to put this to being just an empty form. And the reason that is we still want it to render on this page. So I'm just going to leave it as an empty form. And now I'm going to go into my views for accounts. And at the bottom of it, I'm going to do define add address. And it's going to take in a request. And now we've got the if form is valid. We don't need to call it address form anymore. We can call it form now. Form, and of course the form itself will have to be address form, or let's actually look at the view for the checkout. It's user address form, so it's a user address form, and that of course means we need to import it. So in our forms we have our user address form here, so we just imported that into our view. And now I'm going to do if request.method equals to post. Then we're going to do request.post here. So all this form can do is request the post data. If the form's valid, then it's going to go through this stuff. And then if it's not, if it's not valid, then the errors, we'll worry about that in just a second. But if for some reason the other request method is other than post, we're going to raise HTTP 404. Let's make sure that's imported. It looks like it is because of the one right above it. Okay, so we've got this going. And now there's one more thing that I want to add is I actually want to get a parameter or where we might need to redirect this form. So I'm going to do try redirect equals to request.get, and we'll just say we're going to have to use some sort of variable for our redirect. So I'll just call it redirect for now. We might want to change that later, but I'll just leave it as redirect, and then I'll just do redirect equals to none. So if redirect is not none, then we're going to return the redirect. So let's make sure that we have HTTP response redirect in here, and we do. And we also have reverse, which is good. So I'm going to scroll down here and return redirect. And we can do it where the redirect is the name of the view that we need to return it to. So let's actually see what this does in just a moment. Reverse, let's make sure it's the string of redirect. Should be a string, but we will just double check. So this is basically saying if there's a redirect, it's going to reverse to that string of whatever that redirect is. And the reverse of it would be, if we use the redirect name that we want it to go to. So let's actually see this in action here. So now that we've got this view working, I'm going to go ahead and grab the URL name for checkout, which is checkout. And then I'm going to go into our actual checkout.html. And now we've got this address form here. Action now is going to go to our new one. So we need to still create the URL for that. And then we're going to do question mark redirect equals to, and double quotes there, checkout. So this is going to give us the ability to redirect based off of that post. So I'm actually going to, made a little spelling error here. I'm going to print request.get when we actually go through this. So I'm also going to change this add user address, like what we had. We call it a user address form, so we might as well call the view add user address. All right, so now in our URLs, I'm going to add it onto here. This is starting to get a little cluttered, so we'll have to clean up our URLs sooner or later. But I'm going to go URL R, and I'm going to call it Ajax. I'm going to put the URL into Ajax like that, because eventually we might need to, we are going to use it as Ajax, so we might as well just do that now. Although this view itself, it's going to be an accounts.views.user address name equals to add user address, or let's call it Ajax add user address. Of course, it's not Ajax yet, but all right. So the reason I'm doing this is because we want to have the view set up for the Ajax eventually, and then I also want to have a fallback if Ajax is failing, but the form is still submitting. All right. So now that I have this, I can go back into this checkout and do URL. All right. So now we've got our URL where it's going to send the checkout, send the form to. This is going to get the form, and then we're going to use that redirect, which is getting it from the actual request data, and then we are going to redirect them back. All right, so let's go ahead and try this out. I just did a refresh, and we got a little bit of an error, redirects URL pattern error, and it says URLs, line 20. So let's go ahead and take a look. Line 20, oops, got a period here at the end. Everything else looked fine. It's just that period stuck out to me for some reason. All right, so now I go back in here, do a little refresh, and we will do 321 Main Street, and I'll say Irvine, USA, California, 92606, and 555. All right, billing, add address. All right, so reverse for checkout with arguments. It did the string twice. So it did kind of get it, right? So it has the string twice, and that's because of how we actually wrote it here, which I put these quotes here. We actually don't need that. That was a little bit of a mistake. All right, so let's go back into the checkout. I'm going to add it one more time. Oops, I'm going to have to refresh in here. And I'm just going to make up some address, 999 Main. And let's just say Irvine again, state, California, USA, 92606, 555, billing, hit add address, and it comes back, right? Nothing, it didn't seem like anything happened, but something did, right? And we've got this, it says the redirect here. So if we actually look into our admin, do a refresh, we have a few new addresses in here. 1 Main Street, and then our most recent one, 999 Main. So that worked. So now what we want to do is something with the redirect that says actually when they actually render the checkout, when the checkout actually shows up, perhaps we want to have some sort of thing that's saying address added in our GET request, or so like for instance, if we did in our view, let's just add in here outside of the reverse, let's add plus quote address added equals to true, something like that. Okay, so let's go back into it, refresh again, and we'll add in that 999 Main Street, Irvine, CA, USA. I'm just gonna write whatever now, doesn't really matter. And notice it says address added equals to true here. So now, well, we would probably want to use Python, so capital T true. So now what we can do is back into our views, we can say try address added equals to request.get and address added. All right. So for here, we'll print address added, except pass. I'm just gonna go ahead and keep it in here. So it prints out true. I'll just say address added is false. So if address added, or actually, sorry, none. And the reason we use none instead of false is because it's not really false, it's just not there. So we'll just say is not none. Then we show that. And if it is something, it won't show it. So if I hit enter, oh, no, it still shows it because of is not none. That's why. So now it's is none. And now we've got a variable error. So now we just do else address form is none. So it's gone. All right, so what do we have here? Now, if I actually went to checkout, so I go to e-commerce, product, add to cart, checkout, shows up, $9.99, whatever. Just fill out the stuff. Oh wait, this might actually have to be, I don't have a lot of validators on here, so hopefully that works, and it does. And notice I sent it, and now the address is gone. So this part right here is not really that necessary when we have Ajax, because the Ajax stuff will reload for us. But at the very least, we are seeing that this get call is actually working well for us in this sense, right? So we don't need it in the session. It doesn't need to be a session variable for the address being added, because if they come back to the cart, they should see a fresh, add address or select address type of thing, right? So right now we have it stuck at add address. We need it to be where it shows the option of add address or select previous address, right? So those are the things that we actually still need to work on. But for now, we're right in the direction of where we need to be as far as actually building this add user address part into the checkout process. Now, there's other ways that we could go about doing this, right? So we could have several views for checkout. So checkout view 1, checkout view 2, and then each view would be a little bit different. But I don't want to repeat myself a lot, and that's just kind of a tenet of programming anyway. It's called dry, don't repeat yourself. So every time I'm going to add a user address, this is how I want to go about doing it. And of course, using this redirect is something that I'll want to consider in the future. The actual proper term for redirect would be next. So you'd actually use next instead of redirect. So in our checkout, we would use next here. That's kind of the standard term. That's what you would want to use. And next allows us to do the same thing. We're calling it redirect. The only reason I'm calling it redirect, or have been calling it redirect, is so you can understand it. But next is actually the variable that you'll want to use. But I'll just leave it as next page and put it in here as next page instead of redirect. So if next page is not none, then it's going to go back. And of course, we don't have to have all of this spelled out. I'll leave it for now. Maybe later we'll change it. But you could do something more like address, like plus, or something like this, just so it's not like, oh, that means address, right? So like, just so somebody's not messing with it. Not that it's really that necessary, because adding the address will then be associated to the checkout at a later time, which we haven't done yet, obviously. And maybe we want to actually add that into the get call as well. Or we want to add the address that's for the checkout specifically, or for the order specifically, inside of our view. So if there's an order being worked on, then in our view for add address, we would add that address to that order. And that's kind of where we're going to go next.